Hey, welcome into this lesson. This video is on the power of protein. It's an introduction to protein education. So what are you going to learn? What are you going to learn in this lesson? I'm about to tell you. You're going to learn why it's important to eat enough protein, including the long and short-term negative side effects of not eating enough protein, particularly for athletes. 2, the most common protein sources from plants and animals. 3, the amount of grams of protein in different protein sources. 4, how much protein to aim to eat in a day, generally speaking. And then 5, then we'll get more specific and talk about how much protein to aim to eat in a day based on your own personal weight and activity level to support you in your awesome goals as an athlete, student, and overall healthy human. So when I started taking my protein intake seriously, when I learned what I'm about to teach you, it significantly impacted how I felt on the field and also off the field. I noticed that I was less sore, so I was recovering more quickly. I noticed that because I was significantly under eating my protein at the time that I learned this information, I noticed that over time I started feeling more explosive, stronger, improved endurance. I noticed also that I was less hungry between meals. Eating enough protein for our unique body can actually help us to feel more full and satiated. There's so many benefits to eating enough protein. And so I'm so passionate about teaching this to young kids and adults as well. But this is because it's something that we can 100% control, and it significantly will positively impact the goals that you have, especially as an athlete, because you want to be recovering as quickly as possible from your competitions and your training sessions. Okay, so now that you know what we're going to do together, just a little bit more of a refresher for you, because at this point you already know this, but we're just going to refresh it a little bit. So protein is one of the 3 core macronutrients. You know this by now. What are the other 2 macronutrients in addition to protein? So we've got our salmon right here. What are the other 2? I know you're saying this through the video, or maybe you're saying this in your head. Yes, healthy fat. So in this case, we've got a little bit of avocado here. And then we've got our carbohydrates. And in carbohydrates, we have things like our fruit, our vegetables, our starches. In this case, we have some sweet potato here. Really good. And of course, fitting into that carbohydrate category are grains as well, but I don't have any of them on the screen today. So out of these 3 macronutrients, protein is the one that I personally see young girls, young boys, and also adults most consistently under eating, and especially at breakfast. Now, of course, it is possible, I just want to say this, to overeat on protein to the point where it's not supporting thriving health and balance in the body. I do see that from time to time too, but most frequently among middle school and high school kids and also college kids, I most often see them not eating enough protein for their activity level, weight, needs, and goals, especially at breakfast. So don't be one of them. Don't be one of them. Take control of your protein power. After this video, you're going to know exactly how to do that. So why is it important to eat enough protein? Let's start here, because until I understand the why behind something, it's very challenging for me to take action consistently to do that thing, because I don't understand why. I don't understand the benefit. Why should I prioritize this? Why should I spend my time and energy doing this consistently? So hopefully sharing this why with you will help to up your motivation and your desire to prioritize your protein. So this comes from UCLA health.org. I'm going to read these 2 to you. Why is protein important? Your body contains more than 10,000 different proteins. 10,000. Wow. Proteins exist in every body part from your hair to your bones, and they help make and repair cells, which are critical for growth and development. Proteins are made up of a combination of molecules called amino acids. Your body needs 20 different amino acids to function correctly, optimally. It can produce 11 of these 20 amino acids, but it must get the final 9. That's why those other 9 are called essential amino acids, because we have to get them from the food that we eat. And because the body cannot store amino acids for a long period of time, you need to replenish them regularly. That's why it's important to eat our protein spread throughout the day over 3 to 4 or so meals. Furthermore, signs of a protein deficiency, signs of not eating enough. Common signs that your body is extremely low on protein include brittle hair and nails, often the first sign of deficiency. Feeling weak or hungry, since protein supplies energy and satisfies the appetite. Getting sick often, because without protein, protein helps to boost the immune system. Mood changes or trouble thinking due to fluctuating blood sugar and protein's effect on the brain's neurotransmitters, which regulate mood. Like, wow, are you starting to see how valuable protein is? Muscle weakness, since amino acids are essential for building muscle mass. Stress fractures, when bone tissue doesn't have the protein it needs. Very interesting. Now, according to Dr. Stephen Cabral, one of my teachers and mentors, who is a naturopath, Ayurvedic and functional medicine practitioner with 5,000 hours of doctoral work, 2,200 hours of internship, 600,000 plus pages of research study done, and 250,000 plus client sessions, helping people all around the world to rebalance their bodies and their health, including myself. Now, I share all of this I took Dr. Stephen Cabral's courses. I took one of his courses to become an integrative health practitioner. And so I share this information with you because he knows his stuff. And so according to Dr. Stephen Cabral, over the long term, not eating enough protein can lead to things like osteoporosis. So he shares this in this podcast that I have linked up here and on the last page. Not eating enough protein can lead to things like osteoporosis, which is a medical condition in which the bones become brittle and fragile. So again, this is over the long term, over the long extended term. Hair loss, thinning of the skin, and other things that we just honestly don't want, right? We don't want those things. And so some other short-term negative side effects of not eating enough protein are things like slowed muscle recovery, aka an increased risk of injury, reduced strength, and more. We don't want this, especially as athletes, right? So Dr. Stephen Cabral, in this podcast, he speaks about these other benefits of optimizing our protein that are very attractive to athletes. Things like getting stronger in the gym and on the field, improving endurance, and improving your overall performance. Yes, we want this. So as an athlete, this is something that you can control each and every day, and it'll help you improve your athletic recovery, perform better with more power, and have more of an edge over your competition who don't know this and or who know this but aren't consistently doing this. So now I want to walk you through this healthy shopping list. Okay, this comes from Dr. Stephen Cabral's course that I took, his integrative health practitioner course. And as you can see, we have our vegetables. So vegetables fall into the carbohydrate category, as I mentioned. We've got our fruits, same thing, and a carb. Further down the page, of course, you're seeing protein. We've got our protein right here. That's our second macronutrient. We've got our healthy fat over here, our oils and our fats. So avocado, coconut nuts, olive seeds. And we've got some of our gluten-free starches, which is they fall into the carb category. But for this lesson, we're focusing in on protein. So I told you I would walk you through the different protein sources. Well, we've got our animal sources, we've got fish, and then we've got our plant-based vegan protein sources. Maybe some of you already know this and you are already really familiar with these different protein sources, but maybe you're not. So either way, hopefully this is a good refresher. So in the animal category, we've got beef, buffalo, chicken, duck, eggs, game meat, lamb, organ meat, turkey. In the fish category, we've got anchovies, cod, haddock, mackerel, salmon, sardines, sea bass, shrimp, trout. And in the plant-based vegan category, we've got beans of all types, chickpeas, which you can blend up and make hummus, hemp hearts, also called hemp seeds, when you find them in the store sometimes, lentils, tofu, quinoa, a rice and or pea protein powder blend, split mung beans, and then sprouts. So some of you are probably like, I've never heard of some of these, and that's totally okay. But hopefully this gives you a bit of a refresher on all of the options that really are out there in terms of protein sources. So celebrate yourself. You now have this additional information. That's awesome. Okay, how do we apply it? Well, we're gonna do that together in a moment. So in general, at the simplest level, because this really doesn't have to be an exact science, to quote Dr. Stephen Cabral, our protein intake doesn't have to be an exact science. It's not something we want to overcomplicate, okay? So in general, how much protein do you want to aim to eat in a day? I'm going to walk you through this page. Well, the answer is that this is going to be different for everyone based on their, as I've mentioned, weight, activity level, needs at their current stage in their life, and goals. But for most people, here's a pretty good and simple way to start optimizing your protein intake, okay? And so we're going to read through this together. In terms of protein quantity, in general, at the simplest level, aim to eat a fist-sized amount of protein at each meal. Now, this is your own fist size that you're going to be measuring, okay? For most humans, this fist size amount will fall between a half cup to 1+ cups per meal. If you're familiar with the cups as a measurement, then hopefully that makes sense to you. We're going to use include other measurements further down below. In terms of pro tips, so at the simplest level, if you were to move forward and have your fist-sized amount of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you are doing so incredible. You know, if you have a snack too, great, have that amount at a snack. That is the simplest level. So if that's all you take away from this lesson and you start doing that, you are going to experience most likely a significant benefit and improvement if you've been significantly under eating on your protein. Now, at breakfast, sometimes like a fist-size amount at breakfast can be a little bit confusing, especially if certain people are using like a protein powder, if that's what they and their family decide to do. I always recommend before using any type of supplement to always speak to your doctor before doing that. Your parents were informed of that when you enrolled in this program. But for those of you who may go down that route one day, or who just want further clarity around how much protein to aim to eat at breakfast, I recommend you aim for a minimum of 15 grams of protein at breakfast. So if you are doing one of those rice or pea-based proteins or another protein source, you want to aim for a minimum of 15 grams. And we're about to get into this in a moment, but if you were to do eggs at breakfast, well, over here, how much protein is in 3 eggs? Well, 18 grams. Great. So if you have 3 eggs at each meal, you're getting more than that minimum amount, more than 15 grams of protein at your breakfast. Amazing. Now, the ideal for most people, if you want to get a bit more, even more specific beyond the fist size amount, or beyond what I said, this 15 grams of protein at breakfast, because it's kind of weird to say like have a fist-sized amount of eggs at breakfast, right? But now 3 eggs is over 15 grams. It's about 6 grams of protein per egg. But if you want to get a bit more specific, well, the ideal amount for most people in general, not getting too specific, is about 15 to 30 grams per meal or per snack for best absorption. Okay? And so this is all going to make more sense soon, but just keep that in your mind. 15 to 30 grams per meal or per snack. And for reference, 4 ounces of, for example, because we're about to go through, different protein sources like chicken and beef. 4 ounces is about a half a cup for protein. 6 ounces is about a 3/4 cup, and 8 ounces is about a cup. So I believe all the ones the examples I put where it made sense, I chose 6 ounces. So know that that's about a half a cup of protein. Okay? Great. So now I want to show you, now that you have this information, this like, what's the simplest, most general approach to protein? Now we're going to start to transition into getting a little bit more specific. So I want to walk you through, I already showed you eggs, but I want to show you just how many grams of protein are in some of the different protein sources we just talked about. All right, so on to hemp seeds or hemp hearts. If you haven't tried these before, if you haven't heard of them, that's totally okay. They do have a bit of a stronger taste. I love them. I love putting them on like cooked vegetables or salads, or even sometimes I'll put them into a smoothie and I'll blend them in, but they're not for everyone. I would recommend just starting slow because they have a bit of like a hempy flavor to them, but just experiment. So as I said, hemp seeds, also called hemp hearts, and 4 tablespoons of these, if you're gonna try this approach. And these are really nice because you don't have to cook them. You just sprinkle the 4 tablespoons, or maybe if you start with 1 and work up to 4, just sprinkle it on whatever you're eating or put it into a smoothie. So I'd recommend you don't go below 4 tablespoons because 4 tablespoons is about 16 grams of protein. Great. Now you know if you're aiming to eat a minimum of 15 to 30 grams of protein per meal, if you're going to do hemp seeds or hemp hearts, 4 tablespoons or 3 eggs. What about salmon? So in this case, we've got some wild cooked salmon. 6 ounces is 43 grams of protein. Okay, wow, look at that. We're jumping up. There's quite a good amount of protein in about a half a cup, 6 ounces of salmon. What about hummus? I love making homemade hummus. It's so easy. I think it tastes so much better than the store-bought hummus. And there's a recipe for how to make this included in the course. So if you can't find it, let me know. But if you want to get close to that like 15 to 30 gram mark of protein for hummus, you got to actually eat quite a bit. So about 1 cup. Good to know, because some people just put a little dollop of hummus. I used to do this, put a little dollop of that hummus on a salad, and it's really not enough of a protein source if that's the only protein source you're eating at that meal. And typically, I do recommend, like sometimes this morning, my husband made eggs with a little bit of chicken because we had a little bit of chicken left. So I had 2 proteins together. But normally, for ease of absorption and more ease on your digestion, I typically recommend, and this is how I've been taught by Dr. Stephen Cabral, that you primarily at each meal or snack have 1 protein source, but sometimes you're going to have multiple, and that's totally okay. And if you need to combine multiple to get up to that 15 to 30 gram number, go for it. Get creative. Okay, great. So continuing on, I hope this is starting to get your creative juices flowing about like how you could begin making adjustments in your life to your protein based on your protein preferences, what you enjoy eating the most, what your family buys the most, all that. Okay, so we've got chicken, in this case chicken thighs, 6 ounces, about a half a cup is 33 grams. Ground beef, 6 ounces, about a half a cup, is 31.5 grams. Now this is chicken breast. I put chicken breast here for you as well, because as I understand it, chicken thighs contain a bit more fat than chicken breasts do. So for chicken breast, 6 ounces of a chicken breast is about 39 grams. So you're getting a little bit more protein from the chicken breast than you do from chicken thighs. I personally like how chicken thighs taste more. So, but ultimately you'll learn your body more and more over time. And if this is helpful for you to know the slight difference, then great. If not, then eat whichever one you enjoy the most. Okay, now broccoli. You might be like, why is broccoli here? Or why is avocado here? They're not protein sources. They're not like in the protein category. Broccoli is in the carb category and avocado is in the healthy fat. But I wanted to share with you that even in broccoli, in 2 cups of broccoli, there's a little bit of protein. There's about 7 grams, but you have to eat a lot of it to up the protein, to get a higher amount of protein from it. Avocado. So if you were to eat a half of an avocado, that's about 2 grams of protein. So it's really not much at all compared to our other protein sources. And you're eating about half of one of them. So that's quite a good amount of a healthy fat in one sitting. What I've learned from Dr. Stephen Cabral and what I teach is we want to aim to eat, and you'll learn this shortly if you haven't learned it already in the course, but we want to aim to eat anywhere from 1 to 3 tablespoons of a healthy fat at each meal, for most people at most points in their lives. But in this case, so a half an avocado, that's more than 1 to 3 tablespoons. And that's okay. I just wanted to show you that contains a little bit of protein too. All right, great. Perfect. Well done. You've made it to this point. I know this is a long lesson. We're about to tie this all together into how does this specifically apply to you? Now, if you're feeling like, hey, that was enough, or maybe you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, you don't have to listen to the rest of this lesson. You can come back to it in the future and you can just proceed and move forward with what I've already taught you, what you've already learned, that more general approach to protein intake. Because like Dr. Stephen Cabral says in this podcast, it really does not have to be an exact science. And up to this point, you've learned as much as you need to know to really make a significant positive impact in your life as an athlete and as a student. But if you want to get more specific, I'm going to walk you through a podcast that Dr. Stephen Cabral shared. It's posted publicly, so I do recommend you go listen to it yourself if you'd like. But basically, he shares with you the 3 different categories of people in general that exist in terms of the 3 different categories of activity levels among human beings, and based on our activity level and our weight, how to approach our protein intake differently, okay? So let's dive into this together. This is all going to make more sense to you soon. Okay, so here are the 3 categories. We've got Category 1, you're an average human, or you're relatively sedentary. A lot of adults sit a lot of the day with working these days, or perhaps for as a student athlete, maybe you're in your off season, you're really not training right now, or someone who's doing very little training, not much exercise. That's category number 1. If this is you, according to Dr. Stephen Cabral in this podcast, you want to aim to eat 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, Dr. Cabral says to never eat less than this over the long term. This can cause those long-term problems, deficiency problems in protein that we want to avoid. So this is all going to make sense in a moment, because we're going to use a mathematical formula, to take this 0.8 number and combine it with our weight to help you come up with an amount of protein to aim to eat in a day. Okay, so just stay big picture with me. You're doing amazing. So the second category is someone who does weight training or endurance training 3 to 4 times per week. Now, most of you student athletes in this program, you're probably going to be falling into this category, if not this category, where you're weight training 4 to 5 times per week, or an endurance-based athlete working out 60 plus minutes per day, 4 to 5 times per week. So if you fall into this second category, Dr. Cabral recommends that you aim to eat around 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. And then if you fall into category 3, anywhere from 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so first, where do you fall right now? How active are you right now? Are you in an off season where you're not training that much? Or are you training a lot? Where do you fall? If you need to pause the video, do that to figure it out. Now, we're going to go through an example of a 135-pound human, okay? So you're going to get the opportunity to go through this yourself with your own numbers, but I'm going to explain this to you first before I let you go do that. So the equation is you take your body weight in pounds, so body weight in pounds, because we want to get your weight in kilograms. So for a 130-pound human, we divide that by 2.2 to get 61 kilograms. Because we're going to multiply this 61 kilograms by 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Is this making sense? So when you multiply 61, your weight in kilograms, by 0.8, you get 49. So for a person who falls into this category with this weight, you'd want to aim to eat about 50 grams of protein per day. And if you divide that by 3, this is about 15 grams of protein per meal if you're having 3 meals. Now, if you're eating 4 meals, so you're having 3 meals and a snack, so if you're eating 4 meals, that comes out to about 13 grams per meal. Now, again, this doesn't have to be an exact science, but if you do decide to take this approach, hopefully this helps you to get even more clear on specifically for your weight, for your activity level, what your protein needs are. So let's say this 135-pound human falls into category 2. Well, we do the same calculation to change their weight from pounds into kilograms, and then 61 times 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. Well, that's about 60 grams of protein per day. So if we divide that by 3 over 3 meals, this person would want to aim to eat 20 grams of protein at each meal. So if they were eating eggs for a meal and they're only having 3 meals, probably going to want to eat maybe 4, maybe closer to 4, right? To make sure you hit that protein target. If you're eating 4 meals, then you want to divide 60 by 4, and that's about 15 grams of protein. So 15 grams of protein per meal spread over 4 meals. Last example. Let's say this 135-pound human falls into category 3, like the most active, high-intensity training level. So, same sort of thing, convert pounds to kilograms if that's necessary, if you typically weigh yourself in pounds and you don't know your weight in kilograms. If, of course, you only know kilograms, then start with your weight in kilograms. So, what is 61 times 1.2? For 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight on the higher end of this protein range. Well, that's 73 grams of protein per day. So divide that by 3 meals. Well, that's about 24 grams of protein per meal. If you're eating 4 meals, then you would divide 73 by 4. That's about 18 grams of protein per meal to help you hit that protein target. Is this making sense? So, your turn. You're going to do the same process, but with your weight and your activity level, wherever you fall right now. And then my invitation to you is to figure out how much protein, just like we did here, how much protein to eat per meal if you're having 3 meals in a day, if you normally eat 3 meals in a day, or per meal if you normally eat 4 meals in a day. And then if you want to take this a step further, You can see down here it says, and what types and quantities and combinations of protein spread throughout the day would help you hit your protein target. So not only knowing how much protein to aim to eat at each meal, whether you eat 3 meals or 4 meals in a day, but what combinations based on the type of protein that, like I said, you most enjoy, that you most frequently have available to you in your home. Bring any questions that you have to the call this week. I can't wait to hear how this goes for you.